Hello YouTube, this is the second episode of the web hacking series. In the previous episode, we set up our Ubuntu machine, the virtual machine that we have, which we intend to use as our portable server. Now since then, I've started working on a little resource that you can clone. It's on GitHub. I will show you how to set that up in this episode. Now, firstly, we already have an SSH service running. If I run sudo systemctl status sshd and give my password, we can see that the SSH server is running. SSH stands for a secure shell. This is how you connect connect to remote hosts like this virtual machine, for example. If this virtual machine were someplace remote where you just couldn't access it directly, you would use SSH and connect to it. Let me show you how to do that. But first, we need to find the IP address of this machine, since the IP address tends to change. The IP address of the machine can be found using the command IP. It stands for IP address. You can also just write IP address and it'll give you the result. The IP address we're looking for is not 127.0.0.1. That stands for localhost, and it refers to the machine, or it's a loopback address essentially. It refers to the machine itself. And the second IP address we're looking at is number 2 enp0s3. That's the IP address we're looking for. In this case, it's 192.168.1.36. It will be different, or it may be different for you if you set up or if you're following along with me. But regardless, we can make our life easier by editing our etc hosts file on our host machine. That is the main machine we're running. I'm going to use Vim to edit it. Now, as you can see, I've already added an entry for that previously, but I need to change it because the IP address changed. Now it is IP 192.168.1.36. So I will put that in, and I hit tab and I enter server 1. On Arch Linux it is empty, but you may see 127.0.0.1. If the host file is populated, all you do is add a new line and just put the IP address in 192.168.1.36 and give it a name. I'm going to call it server 1. Double check if it is correct. It is indeed correct. So we exit, we write and quit, as you can see over here. Let me make the screen bigger. Yes, I am writing. I hit the escape key and I enter the colon, W for write, Q for quit. So we've exited that. Now I can SSH into it. So SSH, my user, which is byte, and then the server IP, which is server 1. We put it in the etc host file. And now I enter the password 1 2 3 4. Yep, we're in. If I run this, if I run neofetch, which shows me the operating system information, we can see we're running Ubuntu, which is the same as this. I had to install this, but an easy way to check if you're really inside is you run uname tac a, and it'll give you all the information. If it matches, you know it's the server. Well, it matches. Okay, so now that that's out of the way, I will minimize this, and we're inside the server, so we can begin. First, we make sure that Apache, we install Apache because it's not installed already. I did end up installing it myself off video, but the way you install Apache HTTPD is you run sudo apt install Apache 2. And since we're going to be using PHP as well, we also install PHP. Now, I also, for this web series at least, we will also be using Git. So I will also install that. Now, all these three are already installed. That's because I installed it off camera. But this is how you install it. Before installing, it's advised that you run sudo apt update and sudo apt upgrade just to keep things up to date. I've already done this, so we will move on to the next step. I will put a link to the GitHub repository in the description, but I call it my cyber notes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this. I'm going to use HTTPS, copy this, and I'm going to go to the var www HTML directory. This is where all the the files related to the website is stored. I've already put index.php here, but we can remove that. rmindex.php. Yes. Sudo dot. It's empty now. By default, if you just installed Apache 2, you will see an index.html file in there. Now, the next step in all of this, you git clone and then the repository name. That's this. If you run this, it will permission denied. Oh, yes, I need to run this as sudo because I don't have permissions to write it in this directory without it. As you can see, there is now a my cyber nodes right there. Well, there should be in, hold up, I must have forgotten to commit. We are going to clone this repository and we're going to put it inside the web server root. So I'm going to git clone the link in my home directory and it will clone it here. So there's a my cyber nodes now. And then we're going to copy the files within my cyber nodes. So cp recursive, which is essentially a flag that says, hey, copy everything in all the folders inside this folder. So my cyber nodes, everything inside. If I were to omit this and just say my cyber nodes, it will copy this folder as well. I just want to copy everything within the folder, so we do that. And then we copy this to var www html. And we run this with sudo privileges because it needs sudo privileges to copy it into that directory. That is done. Now, if I were to access the HTTP server 1, let's do that properly. There's a web page and it has the stored XSS, lab, and we click on it, it takes us to nothing. That's not supposed to happen. Well then, let's do some troubleshooting. This is part of the process. Oh, also, I'm supposed to use SQLite. I forgot to install that. So we should also install SQLite because that's a dependency of the project that I have. So sudo apt install SQLite 3. and we need the PHP plugin for SQLite 3. So PHP SQLite 3. This will install both of these packages so that this server can this web page can run properly. I will put instructions within the repository so you can easily follow it. But for now, we wait for this to complete, and yes. Okay, that is done. Now to get SQLite to work, we need to edit our php.ini file, which is a config file for PHP. Essentially, all we need to do is enable support for SQLite. So let's do that. etc php. Oh yes, php.ini. Oh, it's different here. php.ini. Okay, I will search for SQLite. An easy way to search is using the / and then type in the string we want to search for, SQLite. Yes. And hit the X key to get rid of that colon. If you are uncomfortable using Vim, you can also use Nano, which is another text editor, and it's much easier to use. Essentially, we want to uncomment these two lines, this and this, so that PHP can use the SQLite libraries that it needs. Write and exit. If Vim is uncomfortable, you can also use Nano, sudo nano etc php 8.1 Apache php.ini. Then it will open a text editor like this. It's much more user friendly. It can be easily used. Okay. Control X to exit. No. Okay, now that that's fixed, let us try again. Reload the server, go to stored XSS, and it still doesn't work. So let us have a look at the Apache logs. The Apache web server stores logs in the var log apache2 error.log. As you can see, there's a fatal error over here, PHP fatal error, uncaught error class SQLite 3 not found. Perhaps we need to restart the server because we just installed it. So let us restart. My bad. Reboot. That's the command. Sudo reboot. And we will lose connection to it because we're using SSH. But as you can see over here, it is rebooting. Okay. It now works properly again. Let us SSH back into it. SSH byte at server 1. Give it my password. The IP address hasn't changed as of now, so we can use the same thing. We don't have to re-edit the etc host file. Let's change the font size again. Now Apache should be back up. So if I go back to server 1, oops, over here. No, I don't want to search for it. HTTP server 1. As we can see, we now have this properly working again. If I click on the stored XSS, we get our first module, the XSS module. In the next video, I will show you many different XSS vulnerabilities. But for now, that's all for today. I will see you in the next video.